So I've recently been experimenting with this idea of using photogrammetry to scan streets. I mean, normally you do something like this with with like a lidar, something like is it like a total station or Faro scanner or something, but they're very expensive thing. I mean, you can rent them, and they're obviously on professional production, that's what they do. But for us mere mortals, who just like to do experiments and things. I was wondering about the idea of I have 6 GoPros for like a GoPro Omni style 360 rig, and I was wondering about repurposing them as capture cameras. So basically, I'll insert them pictures of my different setups, but this was basically 6 GoPro 7s arranged in a sort of hexagonal layout in landscape, with the photos set to linear. I was also wondering about doing it to log as well, and rather than recording video, because the big problem with this is like the full project where I walked around for like, I don't know, like 15 minutes or so. That's like 6,000 pictures. I basically I set the GoPro to, or the 6 GoPros, to do time-lapse photos at intervals at every half second. So that meant in every second 12 photos was being taken, which is like 12 frames per second almost, right? But that's still just like way too many. And even having 6, you can get away with 4, and set them to 1 second, and at normal walking speed, that also seems to be good enough. I mean, it's a bit lumpy in places, and obviously the further you get away from the projections, the more lumpy it gets. And maybe I could have keyed out the sky, so you wouldn't get all this sort of stuff on the roof or on the. But it does work quite well, and it works better. The secret sauce is obviously, well, there's 2 things. Obviously, set it to the linear mode so you don't get the horrible fisheye. But something that's so super important, which is I only found out recently, is the rolling shutter compensation. That needs to be set to full on all the cameras. So select all the cameras and set that to full, and that will do a much better job, because otherwise there'll be shear in the picture. Because as you walk along, as you walk along, the pictures will, and lampposts and stuff will skew ever so slightly, but that's enough to mess up the photogrammetry thing. So that's like the top tip, because I'm not talking about stopping taking the set of pictures and then moving on taking another. I'm just talking about walking along, having it going, blasting every half second. And like I say, half a second is probably too long. You'd really maybe just a second. So, and 4 cameras blasting along every second. And also, I did try and do them, arrange the cameras in. I'll again do the insert in portrait, being that I was sort of, well, the thing, what I realized when I first ran this, it was like the ground looked really good. It was like, wow, the ground's looking great, but the buildings look terrible. I mean, they don't, they're not amazing, but you could easily just put a big flat plane there and maybe just do the archway and do the windows, retopper it. I mean, it's still quite a lot of work, but at least, it will be accurate to the actual place, and then do all the projection, you do all the UV layout, and then take it all back into Metashape and do all the projections of the texture, and it will all be accurate to the place. I mean, if you wanted it in a game engine, you'd probably end up sort of making modular buildings and reduplicating buildings to have more detail and save a memory and all the rest of it. But the initial sort of like white box model, you could do here. Oh, I do it in Blender, retopologize it in Blender with the vertex snap-on, and just like extrude planes and edges and whatnot. So yeah, but anyway, so when I realised that the rolling shutter was a key factor, was that the ground was fine, because initially I didn't have the rolling shutter compensation on, but the buildings were really bad. I mean, a lot worse than these buildings are here, and it was like it's not even usable. I sort of thought, well, why is it the ground okay and the building's not? And then I suddenly realised, well, it's the rolling shutter, because all these pictures are in landscape, and as we're walking past lampposts and stuff, there's a slight shear and stuff, right? So if I was to put them in portrait, because the motion would be then coming from the bottom of the frame, there won't be, it's scanning, you know, the CMOS sensor scans from top to bottom, and there's a slight delay, and that's what causes the rolling shutter. But if that's only with images and motion entering right to left or left to right, right? If it's top to bottom or bottom to top, it doesn't matter. And I tried that experiment with my 4 GoPro portrait rig, and it looked a lot better, and the buildings were a lot better. But I still noticed like holes in the road all of a sudden. And I thought, oh, hang on a sec, we're now getting rolling shutter effect on the road. So I have to. So then I found that remove rolling shutter feature on the calibration on your cameras there, and that improved things massively. And then it was like, well, if it works on the portrait, let's try it on the original landscape. And again, it worked a lot better. I mean, it's, you know, it's still a bit chunky, but where there's cameras and the cameras are relatively near to things lines are square and crisp, which is what you want, right? So yeah, this works remarkably well, and you know, you can capture places so quickly. The time's all in the processing, so there's a sort of delicate balance between you want to take as enough photos that that you can align it all in one session. You can do chunks in Metashape, but I've had sort of mixed results in terms of the alignment between chunks. So I always try and go for do the session. Don't go over maybe 1,000 or 1,200 photos, because that you'll be there forever solving. I mean, it might take like a day or even 2 days possibly to solve. I mean, this is the advantage of using reality capture, but I've yet to figure out a way of importing your retopoed model back into reality capture with the new UVs and doing all the baking, which I can do very easily in Metashape. And also there's a sort of the cost. It's not very much. I mean, I think the 6,000 photo session, when I put it up into reality capture, I mean, it took about, I don't know, 5 hours or something, and it was about $50 or something. And I was a bit like, and it was the model it produced. Although this is only a tiny section of the entire project, the detail here it just seems to be a lot better. And I think that might be to do with this rolling shutter business. I don't know if reality capture can compensate for rolling shutter. And also, I'm not sure about importing in the model, as I said before. But so basically, I just walked around like a bit of a doofus with a monopod held above my head with the 4 GoPro, or in this case 6 GoPros. And it's useful to have a monopod because it keeps things level. Because all you have to do is hold the monopod level. I was thinking about putting it on like a stabilizer, but it just seemed a bit like that's just adding extra weight. I think just being able to hold the pole level. And so in about like, I just walked out I mean, I'm not showing it because this is not where I live, but I just basically walked out the front door, walked around for like 20 seconds, and then came back in, ran it through Metashape and see if it made things worse or better with different setups and different settings and whatever. But yeah, I mean, it worked quite well. I mean, in terms of speed, I mean, you'll get a rough model, and you know, you won't be able to use it straight away. You're going to have to do some work with it. But I think I could retopologize something like this in probably about an hour or so, maybe, and UVs as well, and the bake. And so obviously a lot larger area, it'd take longer, but yeah, so the basic settings are put your GoPro. Also, I use this app on my iPhone. I think it's available for Android, where you can control all the cameras together, and they'll just via Bluetooth to your phone, and that's super useful. Unfortunately, you have to go through all the settings manually on each of the cameras, but you can trigger them all together. You can turn them on all together, and you can turn them off all together, which are the main things. I mean, it was really meant for the 360 stuff, but I kind of not exactly given up on it. But I was a bit like that's underwhelmed by the process, and I was trying to do the the 6 GoPro 360 thing. So yeah. But anyway, I thought since I had these cameras, I would, and obviously you could put one on a drone presumably and fly it, and put like I'm using like a thing that allows you to fly the drone in a grid pattern to shoot down to get all the roofs. And if it's a GoPro on the drone, if you put I mean, you could use the onboard camera. I've got like a DJI Phantom 4 Pro, but I'd probably put a GoPro on it just so it's the same camera. So yeah, GoPro. I think linear would be is better. I couldn't really get the fisheye, the wide mode to work. So put it in linear. I was also wondering about exposure compensation, whether it should be 2 stops up, just to make the sky blown out, and then that'll be easier to pull a Luma key, and you'd get more of the shadow detail. And also maybe put it in the log format as well, as opposed to the GoPro color. I mean, all the tests I've been doing so far. Well, I did one test in GoPro with GoPro versus log, and I think log seems to work better. Although you're going to have to, correct for that, color correct. But yeah, as a sort of like quick method of like if you need to do this sort of thing, where it's like I was thinking sort of virtual production or car chases or something, stuff on LED walls or whatever, right? Where it's like you'd like to have a bit more control than just playing, I think this might be a sort of workable method for that. And then you could, customize, and it can actually be a proper, you could conceivably have the journey actually linked to the guy driving the car, right? It's a bit of a mad idea, and obviously it would be quite a lot of work, but I think it would be worth it. And like the actual capturing process was really quick. Processing is a bit slower, and obviously 6,000 thing. It's like, yeah, I'm sort of struggling to figure out the best way. I think we're about probably maybe 2-3 days to process it locally, as opposed to reality capture would be about 10 hours, as I said before. But the model I got out of reality capture was awful. So I mean, this is sort of, but yeah, I was quite surprised how well it worked. So I'm going to call this street photogrammetry, or street 360 photogrammetry, being, as the method. And I haven't seen this anywhere else do this. It was just one of these things that I wondered about, and that's the sort of thing. I think it's always, obviously get all the. If you're into VFX or game dev or whatever, you need all your basics, all the standard stuff. But once you've, if you've been doing it for over a decade or 2 decades, in my case, you sort of run out of things to. I mean, there's always stuff to learn and new software, but there's also opportunities where just following someone else's path or method, you're not really developing your own problem-solving skills. These sort of little wacky experiments that you do, your own little personal projects, they can open doors. I mean, I've got jobs doing scanning castles with drones and stuff from just experiments that I did on YouTube. So this might open doors, and obviously you could probably use higher grade cameras, maybe for Sony, A7 III cameras, as opposed to with rectilinear lenses. You're going to get better dynamic range there. And so, I mean, you can. That's one last thing. You can set. There's the night shot mode on the GoPros, which basically allows you to have long exposures. So that's quite. And if you use a Pro Tune, you can lock it to 800 ISO. So basically, it's the same rig, apart from what you have to do is you can't obviously walk then, because you'll get trails. So you basically go in the room, place down the tripod with the cameras on it, set it to this night shot mode, and then hide behind the door and press the button. Or either that, or make it so that your hexagon head is missing one camera, and that one camera is where you're holding where you're standing. And then just basically go through, place down the tripod, because the exposure is about like 3 seconds. So but in that way you can shoot more low light things and capture interior spaces. And I did a test around my office. I mean, it was, albeit that the floor was a bit messy, so they didn't make things super easy. But it works. I mean, it's I'm just thinking it seems better than the iPhone scanner. they're using any of the iPhone apps or whatever, and not nowhere as good as like as I say, one of these lidar sort of total stations. But they just cost loads of money to rent or to buy. So it's all a bit of a balancing act. But what I have learnt, like I said, is that you can get away with 4 cameras at taking at second intervals and at walking speed, and that gives you pretty good results. Yeah, that's this sort of thing. I mean, very similar. And yeah, so this was so that's it really. Just thought I'd do a little thing of more experiments. I'm sort of just putting the mocap thing on pause a bit because I thought this was kind of, now that I've got this to work, because initially I couldn't get the thing to work at all, and that was really initially I did, well, a combination of the fisheye effect, although it should be able to do fisheye, but I think it was more the fact that the rolling shutter was really bad on the fisheye. So it was just like I could only solve a fraction of the photos. Okay, I thought I'd actually have a go at doing the retopology thing. Retopo's sort of half decent. I don't think we'll bother with the textures. Okay, almost done. Go to Blender. Now I know people seem to use shrink wrap quite a lot for the retopo thing, and now I also have used retopo flow, but I'm just going to go with vanilla Blender and just use the vertex snap. That seemed to work. So there was sort of some detail there. I mean, you see, look. I mean, that is not bad at all, really. I mean, it looks even better in Blender. I mean, you can get the blinds. Crikey! I mean, it's yeah. I mean, okay, the roof is super blobby, and we're gonna have to anyway. So I'm more and more trying to do everything in Blender. Even to the point of sculpting. I mean, I have ZBrush, and I used to use it, and I have Modo, and I used to use Modo, but now I'm just trying to do everything in Blender. Anyway, so yes, go, and then we'll just go grab, stick it on all. Is that going to let us? Oh, is it going to freak out? There we go. What we don't want to do, or what we could do, is trim off all the rubbish, but Blender's not very good at handling dense mesh. If we go, I'll show you what I mean. This is where ZBrush is actually quite good. Not in the retopos so much, but it was more of a case of do I need to worry if I wanted to trim off all this stuff on the roof. If I go into the mesh, the actual thing, you'll see it's just so dense. I mean, I could decimate it, but obviously you kind of lose detail. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and model around the where it goes a bit crazy. I mean, that looks like the roof line there. You see it's completely hot because how many polygons is this? It's yeah, you see it's just super dense, and so problem with Blender is when the mesh, and this is similar in Maya, but Maya's a lot better at handling this, is when the mesh is dense, it's just selecting stuff. I mean, you can split out the model into parts, I seem to remember, in Metashape, but I would probably, if I wanted to trim the model, I would probably do that all in ZBrush, albeit that can mess up UVs, or you can lose UVs, I seem to remember. But I mean, you saw how quick that was to do. Okay, so let's just go back to just not worrying about the manky roof line. Come on, don't show me up. I just think it's like one simple polygon there, so it shouldn't really freak out. But yeah, the more I look at this, the more I realise it has done a really good. Okay, the cars are completely terrible, but we're not. I'm just the cars. I was going to remove anyway, and it wasn't really about the cars. It was more about the buildings, rooms, and in environments. I mean, even the bushes you might want to get rid of and use proper 3D ones, speed tree or something. But it was just sort of the idea of maybe because a friend of mine had this idea for a game which was based on real locations, and I thought, oh, that kind of, well, I've always wondered, you know, what is the easiest way to capture an environment if you don't have access to LiDAR. And it's like, well, photogrammetry always seemed to work around an object, but not be very good when it was like around an environment, or you needed strategies. So I've come up with the strategies, what I'm trying to say, which I'm sure, you know, someone else has done it possibly, but it was sort of, it's, yeah, you know, people go for the low hanging fruit on making Blender or making YouTube videos, but I'm more interested in the kind of, I guess, the more fringe stuff. So obviously, you know, probably less appealing, but it's just like, it's sort of, I don't want to be the you know, the 10th version of the video. I want to be the only version of the video. I just, you know, there's more interest. I think it's more, I have more interest in breaking new ground than repeating something that somebody else has done, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. So let's grab that. Oh, this is quite painful actually. I thought it'd be alright, but I think it's struggling because it's having to. It's not. It's sort of. Oops. Wait. I'm gonna have to go to the individual. Needs to be stuck on a bit. I mean, that's you know, from like GoPro camera. I mean, it's sort of quite incredible how. Okay. Yeah. It's just, well, I'm impressed. I mean, I know it's not like scanning around an object, but it's doing like the complete opposite in that we're looking outwards and reconstructing from outwards, as opposed to just going around an object on a turntable or something. So it's never going to be as good as that. But it's still, I still think there's, I still think there's value in this model, right? Because it's going to be accurate, you know. And so as I said, I'm going to get too carried away because it's like, oh god, doing retopology video. It's like, how boring is that? I just wanted to show you how quickly, you know, well, also how good Blender is at doing retopology. Not so much at trimming super dense meshes, but I kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I tend to, in the past I've used, so let's deal with the sort of the problem areas, in terms of like, well, what are you going to do, oh, I know, it's alright, moaning over nothing, sort of, it's the thing is, go past the flower box there, or whatever that is. And going to, yeah, I could get used to this. I mean, normally I used to use 3D Coat, and then for retopo, and then move to using Blender more possibly. But yeah, both. I mean, sorry, Modo, and then finally Blender, but. Yeah, Modo wasn't particularly great at dealing with really high detail. I mean, it'll get better from version to version, but it always seemed a little bit chuggy when you had to edit sort of. But we're sort of sidestepping that issue because we're not going to worry about the crap. I'm just showing you that you can kind of infer where the geometry needs to be, and you kind of only need to get it. If we went, okay, and then up to the top. I mean, yeah, I could have keyed the sky. It's just I didn't really want to go through 6,000 frames doing that. But I mean, if it's just like a comp and you've got them as frame numbers. It's just that there's obviously six different cameras, and ideally what I should have done is got them all into like After Effects or something, or rename them just as like a 6,000 frame sequence, because it doesn't really matter the fact that I mean they are synced, so that when the 6 cameras went off, they are. Is that going to work for us? Like I said, it's a little bit experimental, this whole idea, but I think it's gonna. Okay, so let's go with that. As well, let's say we're happy with that, and then we'll go edit mode, all UV editor, and then we go unwrap. Unwrap. Or can we go unwrap? I guess that's okay. I mean, there's hardly any. Okay, it's a bit like it to be square, really. I'm gonna just go with that for now, and then go file export, obj, file import, obj. Okay, and then if we do a bake, build texture, keep UVs, 18K texture, go. Seems to be taking its time. Yeah, so the roof's a bit junk, but yeah, I mean that's sort of, I mean it's like 8K. It's probably a bit excessive. I mean, you know, but it's only like, you know, gone from that super dense model to, have we got the high res? Can we do the flip between the two? Oh, it's, yeah. I mean, that's like 12 million faces. So, yeah, but yeah. But yeah, so you could see how you could build out something pretty quick. I mean, well, you know, like I said, it's all a little bit of experimental, but yeah, I'd quite like to do like a whole village or something, you know, and do the drone thing as well, so get the roofs. But yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd show you this. That's it.